I still can't believe it happened. My own graduation, a day I'd worked my entire life for, and my parents, they slapped me. Right there, in front of everyone, yelling that I didn't deserve my degree. It's been months, and the sting of their hands on my face is nothing compared to the wound they left on my heart. Tell me, would you have done the same thing I did? Would you have cut them out of your life completely after that? Let me take you back to the beginning, to understand how we even got to that point. I'm an only child, and from the moment I could understand words, my parents made it clear that my sole purpose in life was to achieve academic excellence. Everything revolved around school. Playdates were canceled for extra tutoring sessions. Weekends were spent at the library, not at the park. My report card wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a sacred text, dictating my worth in their eyes. A B was a failure, a public humiliation. An A- was met with a sigh and a lecture about room for improvement. I distinctly remember one time in elementary school, I got a B in art class. Art, my dad sat me down and told me that if I couldn't even excel in something as trivial as art, how could I expect to succeed in life? I was 8 years old. As I got older, the pressure intensified. High school was a blur of AP classes, SAT prep, and extracurriculars that looked good on college applications, not ones I actually enjoyed. My parents meticulously planned out my future. A prestigious university, a practical degree like engineering or pre-med, and then a high-paying job. My dreams of becoming a writer or an artist were scoffed at, dismissed as childish fantasies. Those aren't careers, they're hobbies, my mom would say, her voice dripping with disdain. I learned to keep my passions hidden, to conform to their expectations. It was easier than fighting, easier than facing their disappointment. I became a master of presenting the perfect student, the perfect child, all while slowly dying inside. When it came time for college applications, I applied to all the right schools, the ones with the big names and the even bigger price tags. I got into several, and my parents beamed with pride. They paid for everything: tuition, housing, books, a generous allowance. But there was always a cost, an invisible string attached to every dollar. It was the expectation that I would continue to be their obedient, high-achieving robot. I chose to major in electrical engineering, a field I had absolutely no interest in, purely because it was what they wanted. The courses were incredibly difficult, and I struggled. I spent countless nights crying into my textbooks, feeling like an imposter. My grades were decent, but they weren't the straight A's my parents demanded. Every phone call was an interrogation about my GPA, a reminder of the investment they were making in me. I felt like a stock, constantly needing to prove its rising value. During my sophomore year, something shifted. I met Sarah, a free-spirited art history major, who saw beyond the carefully constructed facade I presented to the world. She encouraged me to explore my own interests, to find joy outside of academics. Through her, I discovered a small, independent film club on campus. I'd always loved movies, but I'd never allowed myself to indulge that passion. I started attending meetings, staying late to discuss films, even trying my hand at writing a few short scripts. It felt like breathing fresh air for the first time in my life. I started taking a film studies elective, secretly at first, then openly, even though I knew my parents would disapprove. The joy I found in those classes fueled me, giving me a reason to push through the engineering coursework I dreaded. My parents, of course, found out about the film class. My mom stumbled upon a charge on my tuition bill for Film 201. The phone call that followed was brutal. She accused me of squandering their money, of betraying their trust. My dad chimed in, threatening to cut off my funding if I didn't drop the class immediately and focus solely on my real major. I stood my ground for the first time ever. I told them I enjoyed it, that it was important for my mental health. That just made them angrier. They called me selfish, ungrateful. They said I was throwing away my future for a frivolous hobby. I ended up dropping the class, but the seed of rebellion had been planted. I continued to dabble in film, writing scripts in secret, dreaming of a different life. I started taking a few online courses in screenwriting, using my allowance money, knowing they would never approve. The final 2 years of college were a relentless grind. I poured all my energy into getting through my engineering degree, just to appease my parents, while secretly nurturing my creative side. I volunteered to help with student film projects, learning the ins and outs of production, editing, and directing. I even managed to get one of my short scripts produced by the film club, and it won a small award at a campus festival. It was a tiny victory, but it felt monumental to me. I didn't tell my parents, of course. They would have seen it as further proof of my distraction. They just kept pushing me, demanding higher grades, questioning every decision I made. I was constantly walking on eggshells, terrified of disappointing them, yet also seething with resentment. I felt like I was living a double life. As graduation approached, the tension in our family reached a breaking point. My parents were ecstatic. Their investment was finally paying off. They bragged to all their friends about their brilliant engineer son, already planning out my job search. I, on the other hand, felt a profound sense of dread. I was about to embark on a career I loathed, a future that wasn't mine. I had applied for engineering jobs, but also, secretly, to a few film schools and production companies. I even got a promising interview with a small production studio that specialized in documentary filmmaking, a field I was incredibly passionate about. It was a long shot, but it was my asterisk shot. The interview went well, and they asked for a portfolio of my work. I compiled all my secret scripts, my short film, everything. The day before graduation, my mom called. "We're so proud of you, honey," she said, her voice unusually sweet. "Your father and I just want to celebrate your achievement." She then asked if I had seen the email from the dean's office about final transcript requests. I said I had. "Good," she said, "because we went ahead and requested a copy for ourselves, just to have, for our records." A cold knot formed in my stomach. My parents had access to my academic records, and if they looked closely enough, they'd see the online screenwriting courses I'd taken, the film studies elective, everything. And they did. An hour later, my phone rang again. It was my dad, his voice trembling with a fury I hadn't heard in years. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared. "Film school applications, screenwriting courses. What in God's name have you been doing with our money?" He had found my applications, my portfolio. He had found everything. I tried to explain, to tell them about my passion, about the job interview, about how miserable I was in engineering. But they wouldn't listen. They accused me of being a liar, a manipulator. My mom started crying, saying I had broken her heart, that I was ungrateful for all their sacrifices. They told me I had wasted their money, that I had shamed them. They said they wouldn't be attending my graduation, that they couldn't bear to see me. I was devastated, but also, surprisingly, a little relieved. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the break I needed. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, about to graduate with a degree I hated, knowing my parents were furious, and secretly hoping for a different path. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have tried to appease them, or would you have stood your ground? What would you have done? The next day, graduation dawned bright and clear, but my heart felt heavy and overcast. I got ready, put on my cap and gown, and made my way to the ceremony. I sat there, among my classmates, feeling a profound sense of loneliness. Sarah was there, of course, cheering me on, but the absence of my parents was a gaping hole. Or so I thought. As my name was called, and I started walking towards the stage to receive my diploma, I heard a commotion from the stands. A woman's voice, shrill and unmistakable, pierced through the murmurs of the crowd. "He doesn't deserve that. He's a fraud." It was my mother. I froze halfway to the stage. My blood ran cold. My parents were there. Not only were they there, but they were making a scene. My father, his face contorted with rage, pushed past the ushers, heading straight for me. "You wasted our money. You shamed us," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the massive hall. Before I could even react, he reached me, grabbing my arm. My mother followed, her eyes blazing, and then it happened. My father slapped me across the face, a sharp, stinging blow that echoed the sound of his words. "You don't deserve that degree," he spat. Then my mother, not to be outdone, slapped me on the other cheek. "We sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay us." The world seemed to stop. The cheers turned to gasps, then shocked silence. I stood there, reeling, my face burning, tears welling up in my eyes, not just from the physical pain, but from the unbearable humiliation. My classmates, the professors, the dean, everyone was staring. I could feel their pity, their judgment. I ripped my arm out of my father's grip. For the first time in my life, I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. I looked at their faces, twisted with anger and self-righteousness, and I saw not my loving parents, but two strangers who had systematically crushed my spirit for years. "You want to know what I deserve?" I choked out, my voice trembling but firm. "I deserve to live my own life. I deserve to be happy, and I've been miserable because of you." I looked them both directly in the eye, their faces momentarily stunned by my defiance. "You want to cut me off? Fine. Consider yourselves cut off too." I turned my back on them, tears streaming down my face, and continued my walk towards the stage. The dean, a kind woman I had grown to respect, met me halfway, offering a comforting hand on my arm. She discreetly handed me my diploma, a look of profound sympathy in her eyes. I didn't even look at it. I just walked off the stage, through the side exit, and out of that building, leaving my parents and their toxic expectations behind. I went straight to Sarah's apartment, my face still stinging, my heart aching. She hugged me tight, not saying a word, just letting me cry. That night, I made the call. I told my parents I was done. I told them I wouldn't be accepting any more of their financial support, and that I wouldn't be speaking to them for the foreseeable future. They screamed, they pleaded, they threatened. My dad said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. My mom cried that I was abandoning them, but I held firm. I hung up the phone and cried until I had no more tears left. The next few months were incredibly difficult. I moved out of my college apartment and into a small, cheap room in a shared house. I took a part-time job waiting tables to pay the bills. I threw myself into my filmmaking passion, applying to every production assistant job, every internship, every opportunity I could find. My parents sent me angry emails, text messages, even tried to show up at my old apartment. I blocked their numbers, ignored their attempts to contact me. It was painful, like amputating a limb, but I knew it was necessary for my survival. Then, about 3 months after graduation, I got the call. The small documentary production studio offered me a position as a production assistant. It wasn't glamorous, the pay was minimal, but it was a foot in the door. It was my asterisk door. I poured my heart and soul into that job, learning everything I could, making connections, proving myself. Slowly, painstakingly, I started to build a life that was truly my own. I started writing again, and my short film even got accepted into a few small film festivals. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, but I wake up every day excited about what I do. I'm happy, and that's something my parents, with all their money and expectations, never allowed me to be. The scars from that day will probably never fully heal. The memory of their hands on my face, their hateful words, still haunts me sometimes. But I don't regret my decision. I chose myself for the first time in my life, and it was the best decision I ever made. I often wonder if they ever regret what they did, if they ever realize the irreparable damage they inflicted. But honestly, I don't waste much time on it anymore. I'm too busy building my own future, one frame at a time. If you've ever been in a similar situation, where you had to choose between your family's expectations and your own happiness, I hope my story resonates with you. Life is too short to live someone else's dream. Like this video if you were on my side in this whole mess, and please subscribe for more stories like this. Most importantly, share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspectives. I'll see you all in the next story.